Hey English learner, my name is Chubby. Welcome to my channel where I help intermediate or above English learners make more vocabulary stick with the power of listening and speaking. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at how to learn vocabulary effectively. So by the end of this short video, you'll have some hands-on tips on the best vocabulary learning techniques. If you're ready to jump in, let's just have a look at a couple of principles. Well, the reasons these struggling learners think that vocabulary learning is slow and their progress is not as fast as they would expect is because they haven't processed the words correctly. So when you look at lists of vocabulary and you try to repeat words based on their pronunciation, or when you try matching pictures with the words, you try to play with these quote-unquote effective vocabulary apps, you won't be able to memorize English vocabulary effectively. Memorize isn't the right word. We can't really memorize words, especially when it comes to fluency or speaking practice. What you want to aim at is try to master the use of the vocabulary, try to work on acquiring it, picking it up. If you'd like to see some other mistakes that I've seen my students make all the time, then I highly recommend you download my free ebook, 12 Reasons You're Stuck at Improving Your English. Just click the link below and I'll send it to you. Words, vocabulary, and language in general needs to go through your brain cells as many times as possible in order for you to retain them and later retrieve them and then use them anytime you want. And it's really important for you to remember not to focus on everything. Less is more, as I usually say to my students. So by this point, you might be wondering how not to forget English words. And one way I teach my students how to learn English vocabulary faster is that we focus on activities that include matching, categorizing, basically associating, trying to guess meaning from context, and looking up words in a dictionary so you can find out more information about them in those different dictionaries. I'm going to have some specific videos specifically dedicated to some of these different techniques and a playlist with videos so you can find what's for you the best technique to learn vocabulary. The most important thing you need to apply to learn how to learn vocabulary effectively is that you need to be exposed to something that's a little bit above your level. And when you struggle with understanding the text or what you're listening to, because the level of that text is a little bit above your level, that just means you're learning. Learning vocabulary is a systematic process, so make sure you keep reviewing. Don't forget to go back to old topics, to topics you've covered before, you've discussed before, but you also need to find ways to see the vocabulary you've covered in totally new contexts. And books provide you with a natural way for you to review vocabulary, but how to learn vocabulary faster with books. And this is why part of what my channel covers is the power of listening. When you listen to and read words at the same time, you basically give your brain more opportunities for picking up all these words. Frequency is another really important factor. Intermediate learners striving to be more advanced speakers should aim at learning the 5,000 most common and most useful words in the English language, because more than 90% of the words we use in everyday conversations come from this pool of words. And the best tool for you to find out what these words exactly are is the Oxford 5000, which is a comprehensive list of, again, the most useful and most common, most frequent words that somebody at the level of B2 or upper intermediate should be aware of. You will find the link below to the Oxford 5000. Associations in the brain, and this is where that learning with your brain comes from. Close your eyes for a little bit and think about your first kiss. And if you haven't had one yet, that's totally fine. You could think of a memorable trip you had, or a night out, a deep conversation with a friend. And I'm sure by this time, a lot of these images vividly started popping up because your neurons are being activated, and more of them, the stronger the memory. Now you can do the same with vocabulary. You just need to focus on associating things you already know with the things that you've just learned. just make sure that memory is as strong as it could be from the outset, because it's going to determine the way your brain, your neurons will be able to activate that word, and your brain will be able to retrieve that word in the future whenever you need it. And of course, it will take time for that memory to be strong, so definitely work on recycling as much as possible, but we'll work on that in another video. Associate a word or phrase to your senses, your life, and to whatever you can possibly connect it to, whatever is humanly possible. Many people keep reading randomly, just watching movies or playing out with flashcards, and never really making sure that they process deeply enough for that vocabulary to stay in their head in the long term. So make sure you make those memories as strong as possible from the outset, because this will determine the way your brain will be able to retrieve the words in the future. And definitely coming across a word once will not make sure that memory is strong enough. So definitely work on recycling that word, that expression, that piece of vocabulary again and again, but more on that in another video. What I would like you to focus on from now on are 4 things. The first one is relate. Relate the newly acquired vocabulary, the new vocabulary you've just come across, to something that you're already familiar with, or to your own personal life. So make sure you think of activities or actions, think about the last time you did them, and then relate the activity, relate your experience to that piece of vocabulary in order for your brain to be able to process it better. The second point is deep processing. Always try to do some intentional vocabulary learning activities that include deep processing. It means your brain will be able to be the one that learns instead of just your eyes. So try not to be a passive, and focus on becoming a more active learner who can absorb vocabulary like a sponge. Remember that lists don't work, and even if you start reading, you might be able to develop your reading fluency and recognize a lot of different words have a large extended passive vocabulary, but you won't be able to retrieve them whenever you need. So you do need some other tools, even with flashcards. When you learn from flashcards, it's really important for you to connect those memories into something that is so much stronger than just looking at that word. So you could think of a really powerful imagery, some sort of soundscape you can remember, or again, associations with something you already know or your personal experiences. When you have 2 words that you find extremely difficult to learn, one of my favorite activities I always use with my students is to have what we call the association chain, and you find 2 words that are totally different, their meaning is really far from each other, and you try to connect them through all kinds of different words and see how far you could go, how many different words you could associate them with in order to have a chain that connects their meanings. Let me know if the explanation wasn't clear enough, and I will have a specific video on that too. The third point is engage. Engage with the words, engage with the vocabulary, try to categorize them, try to match them, connect them to something else, potentially something you already know. Think of synonyms, antonyms, think of how they relate. Think if you replace the word with a synonym, would it be the same thing? Would it be something different? Because it's a way for you to map out what we call their semantic field, their meaning. You will discover more about their meanings, and of course, look at how that word is really used in context. And the fourth one is strength of memory. Really try to train your memory into remembering as many of the most important words for yourself as possible. And on that, I will have another video how to recycle vocabulary in an effective way as well. Now, at this point in the video, you learned the biggest takeaway on how to learn words effectively. It all starts with processing. Remember how learning with your brain, as I call it, will eventually play a huge role in retaining the words that you learn. And I really hope that this video helped you shift the way you think about effective vocabulary learning. If you'd like to watch further videos on vocabulary learning in the most powerful ways, make sure you go ahead and check out my other videos. And if you like this content, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave a comment if you'd like me to talk about something specific in a future video. You could also check out my other social media presence, my content in some other social media platforms where you can basically focus on learning vocabulary you could use in everyday life. Thank you so much for watching and hope to see you in another video.